What's going on, everybody? Justin here. The Winds of Change is the channel name. Thank you for stopping by. Today, we're going to talk about something pretty important. We're going to talk about 5 mistakes that resellers tend to make during the year that really hurts them when tax season comes around. So whether it's getting close to the April deadline and you're rushing to get your taxes done, or if you're starting the beginning of a new tax season, you need to be doing this in your business because you're going to be seen as a business when you're making the kind of money that you're making online. We're going to be talking about Amazon specifically because that's primarily what I do. Now, I'm not a professional tax person, not a CPA, but I've been selling on Amazon for over a decade. And I have picked up a few things that are going to be general that are going to really help you, because if you don't pay attention, you could be caught paying your taxes more than you wanted to be, more than you need to be, and certainly surprised. So let's get right into this, and we're going to talk about the number one thing that resellers fail to do. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people doing every year. They're not claiming enough miles. Now, claiming your mileage is going to be a huge deduction. Some people think, oh, I'm going to, keep track of every bit of gas that I spend. That can be done, but it's not nearly as big of a deduction. So you can't claim miles and also deduct money spent for gas. So I recommend going the miles route, and I believe most other people will as well. You're going to get a lot more back that way. For example, this year, 2023, the IRS is going to be giving people 65.5 cents per mile as a cost of business. So last year, at least at the time of recording, was 2022, and they were paying 62.5 cents per mile. Now that was after an increase through mid-year. It was like 58.5, and then halfway through the year, they upped it. Now, even knowing that, how good that is, you're going to want to make sure you report every mile that you're driving for your business. Now, given the nature of the business, if you are doing retail arbitrage, you're driving a lot. So you can incorporate this into a lot of things. If you go to the post office, if you go to pick up supplies, if you're going to Walmart or to your local grocery store to do your groceries, and you're also scanning while you're there, you can claim that. Now, this is going to be hard to keep track of. For a long time, companies just did like pencil and paper. But with the use of technology, makes it super easy. I recommend using some sort of app on your phone. You've got your phone anyway, that's what you're doing, scanning. I use MileIQ. I'm not affiliated with them or anything like that. It's just a super helpful program that I've found useful for me in my business. It's helped me catch a lot. And what it does is every time you're in motion, it'll record that, right? And then you go in and you filter whether it was a business or whether it was a personal trip. Let me show you my last year's mileage report from MileIQ. So this is from January 2022 to December of 2022, and it gives you a breakdown of every drive that you've had, right? But then this makes it really nice. All I do is I just request this report, and I print this out, and I give it to my CPA, to my tax guy, and it's got everything in here. It's got the business rate in here, and then it's got the total miles driven, how many were business miles right here, how many were personal, and then 0 unclassified, which means I classified all the ones that were picked up, total distance, and then here it is right here, the business value in dollars. Now, this could change depending on some other things, but this is just a general keep track of the amount of deductions you're going to be able to get, right? So MileIQ, again, is not a perfect system either, but this is, like, for me, $5,900 deduction for my business. That's huge. And all I had to do was just keep track of it on my phone, pretty much hands off, get it sent over to my report, print it out, and then my CPA, or if you're doing it yourself, you have that number right here when it asks how many miles you've driven, which is going to be the 9,783 under business miles. So this is going to be what you want to put in when it's asking you that question, or your CPA is going to put in when they're asking them that question to get the deduction, which is roughly over here. So make sure you invest in some sort of way to track that. MileIQ, I think, is $5 or $6 a month. It's totally worth it for me because you can see how big the deductions are right there. And that's even for me being a part-time reseller. All right, the number two biggest thing that people tend to make a mistake on is not keeping track of their cost of goods sold. Now, if you've never heard of that term, you're going to when you file your taxes. You need to keep track of this now. If you are not doing this, you need to do it immediately, right? The IRS does not consider money spent on materials or on items or on goods to be a business expense, right? So a lot of people start off thinking, oh, I spent $500 at TJ Maxx. I'm going to record that, and that's going to be my deduction from my profits at the end of the year. That is 100% false. You only get a deduction for the cost of the goods that you sell. So in other words, if you spend $500 at Kohl's or TJ Maxx and you don't sell any of it, the government looks at that as you still have those items. Those are an asset to you, so you did not have any expense. Super important that you have this number when it comes tax time. How do you track that? Well, there's a few different ways. I tend to use Inventory Lab, and I'll show you why here in a second. I like Inventory Lab because it automates it. And this is specifically for Amazon, FBA, and FBM. If you're doing eBay or Poshmark or Mercari or something else, you're going to have to figure out some other way to keep track of every item that you have, what its cost was, and when you sold it, so you have an idea of how much that cost was for that item that was sold, so you can get that total at the end. Sounds like a pain to me, right? So I don't do a lot on those other platforms, which is why we're going to talk about Inventory Lab and how it can help you. Again, I'm not affiliated with Inventory Lab or anything like that. It's just a program I've been using for a long time that really, really helps. You can run a profit and loss report. So you can see here, this is just this week. Here's the April 1st and then April 2nd. But what we're really looking for here is this cost of goods sold, okay? So anytime I list with Inventory Lab, I go in here and I put the cost in, and so it keeps track of that item, what the cost is, and then when it sells, it automatically deducts that and keeps track of that to give me an actual profit and to keep track of the COGs, the cost of goods sold. So you can see here on April 1st, my cost of goods sold was $92. So far today, it's been $43. And if you run this report for the whole year, you're going to run the report, print it out, I can give it to my tax guy, and it gives you a total right here. So in the last 2 days, my cost of goods sold is $135. That'd be greater for the year, obviously. And then that's what you deduct as an expense, your cost of goods sold. Inventory Lab makes that super easy, super helpful. If anybody has another program that they do that with on eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, or whatever, let me know about it down in the comments. So now what do you do if you haven't kept track of this all year? You can do an average cost of goods sold, so you'll still have to look at the amount of items that you sold, so you have to get that number from somewhere, and then say you sell books, and on average, you spend $1 a book and you sold 500 books, then, there's $500 of your cost of goods sold. Not a perfect method, but it's better than being caught with your pants down and not having, any info at all when you're filing your taxes. The number 3 thing that you're going to need to be aware of, that I see a lot of people making mistakes on, is you have to know your ending inventory value. And this comes back into the cost of goods sold. It ties in, right? If you're spending money and you're bringing the items in, the IRS wants to know how many items you have left, because again, those are considered assets, not expenses, right? So Inventory Lab does another great report called Inventory Valuation. You run the report, it tells you how much value the items that you have left in stock are worth. It's really easy. You run the report and you give it to your tax guy or gal, or you put it in for yourself. But you need to know that number. You need to have some way of tracking that number. And again, you can do the general value of ending inventory as well, but I like to have it pretty close, and Inventory Lab helps me do that. So this is just another number that you need to be aware of before you go and start filing your taxes as a reseller. All right, so we've talked about miles. Make sure that you claim them, claim enough of them. Most people don't. We've also talked about cost of goods sold. You need to be tracking that right now if you haven't already. And we've talked about ending inventory value. Now we're going to talk about the fourth thing, claiming a percentage of your household bills or expenses or subscriptions. A lot of people don't think about this, but there's a few things that you can claim that are sort of obscure, that aren't really well known when people first get into this. Work with your tax professional to see what all you can claim, but here's some general ideas of some things to look out for. One, a square footage of your living space. If you run this out of your house or your apartment or wherever you're living at, you can claim a percentage of your home. You can get the square footage of the area that you primarily work in, and you can claim that on your taxes as a business expense. You can also do things like your internet, right? Internet, I use it a lot and primarily for business. So I claim a high percentage of my internet bill, think 50, 60, 70%, depending on your personal, use of it for business. Your cell phone bill, I use my cell phone primarily for business. I mean, I use it to make calls and stuff, but besides like my wife and sometimes work, I don't really talk to anybody on there, and I use it mainly for sourcing. So I claim a high percentage of my cell phone bill as well. And then any of the subscriptions that you use, or even if you buy a program to show you, like, there's all these gurus out there that are like, make $1 million on Amazon, buy this. If you buy that, make sure you keep track of that too, because they'll actually deduct that for like learning expenses. I don't think that's the proper term for it, but anything you do to further your education, it can be marked off as well. So make sure to talk to your tax professional, but start thinking about the things that you use in your everyday life that you also use for your business. And the last mistake I want to see you guys avoid, mistake number 5 that's made a lot, is people don't save for their taxes at the end of the year. I recommend saving about 25%. That's just the number that I save. It's not an exact number. There's a lot that goes into that, because you're going to have to do self-employment tax, city tax, state tax, federal tax, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I found that 25% is a pretty safe number to save up from my profit. So I profit, and then I take the 25% from the profit, and then I hold that back to pay that at the end of the year, just in case I end up owing. It's not every year that I owe, but sometimes I do. So as a side note, if you're a one-person operation, you're going to be seen as what they call like a sole proprietor, right? So that means that any income that you have all goes under your social security number. Like for me, I'm part-time reseller. I have a full-time job. So my full-time job's income plus my reselling income goes all together, okay? And then so if I just had my full-time job and I was going to get a refund, but on my business part, my Schedule C, which is the tax form for the business, if I would owe, it would take that refund from the normal job and pay off whatever's owed, right? That's how I think about it in my brain. Really, though, they put it all together, and you're seen as one entity, a sole proprietor. So keep that in mind when if you're doing this part-time. If you are doing a normal job, like a 9-to-5 thing where somebody else is paying you, make sure you're setting up your taxes to be withheld however you want. I can't tell you what to do. For me, I make sure they hold it a little bit higher, so at the end it helps offset that business expense at the end of the year. Okay, so there's 5 mistakes that I hope this video is going to help you avoid. I know taxes aren't the most exciting thing about reselling. It's super fun to go out there, find stuff that's worth money, resell it, and think that the world is awesome. And that is really fun, but you're going to be hit with a Mack truck if you're not keeping these things we just talked about in mind when you're reselling. Nobody likes to do the stuff that keeps the wheels greased. We just like to go, but this is really important. So I hope that this helped you understand a little bit more about the general taxes that you're going to need to be watching out for, about some of the information that you're going to need before you file your taxes, mainly cost of goods sold, ending inventory valuation, and keeping track of your miles. If you can master a way to track those 3 things, you're going to be in good shape. Again, I use MileIQ and Inventory Lab. I'm not affiliated with them. They just help me. So hope everyone takes it serious, has a good time reselling. Make sure you do the stuff on the back end to keep your business going strong so you can continue to do what you enjoy, and that's finding awesome things to make money to help it so you have some extra money or maybe even go in full time. Thanks for watching the video. If you like it, make sure to like it on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, be kind to yourself and to others. And until next time, I'll catch you all later.